Ancient Bongo WATTO, Rastafari Tafari. Wisemind Publications, Unshackle Your Mind. Ancient Bongo WATTO, written by Rastafari Tafari, layout by Rastafari Tafari, edited by Joseph Powell, introduction by Jakes Homiak, cover design by Ja Reveal Designs, published by Wisemind Publication, Lot 97 Catherine Hall, Montego Bay No. 2, Jamaica, West Indies. Wisemind Publication 2021, all rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced or stored without prior permission of the publisher. Table of Contents. Page 7, Introduction. Page 18, Prayer of Bongo WATTO. Page 20, Yadop. Page 23, Trials and Tribulations. Page 27, Interpretation of the Bible Bongo. Page 28, Prince Emmanuel. Page 29, Can a person be Rastafari without dreadlocks? Page 31, The Divinity of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. Page 34, Coronation of Emperor Haile Selassie I. Page 38, Vows of the Nyabingi. Page 44, International Travels. Page 46, Irids of Bongo WATTO. Page 48, Ancient Bongo WATTO Prayer as the sealing word sound to the 1980 Golden Jubilee Nyabingi at Angel Heights, St. Catherine. Page 54, Psalm 87. Acknowledgements. The life work of Rastafari, patriarchs or matriarchs, is a treasure vault for incoming generations. This work is an important milestone for those seeking knowledge of Rastafari Heights of Liberty. Special thanks to Joseph Powell for guidance and to Jakes Homiak for the important archive material. Thanks also to Ras Moea Masimba, filmmaker, Ratsmas Burgist for support, Ja Reveal Designs, and Ras Julio for artwork. Full gratitude to the individuals whose pictures I have used in this book. Flacco Tafari. Introduction. The tradition of Bongo WATTO, Nyabingi Patriarch. In the history of the Rastafari movement, there has never been any single individual recognized to speak on behalf of all Rastafari. Among the handful of first evangelists who spread the gospel of the movement, Leonard P. Howell has been the most recognized for his works from the early 1930s through the early 1950s. The movement at large, however, is one that has developed from stage to stage without being exclusively indebted to the inspiration of any one figure, save for that of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie. In the case, however, that we can point to a select few individuals whose ritual careers, by virtue of their age, positioning, inspiration, spiritual and cultural works, and longevity, were profoundly important and transformational figures in the development of the movement. Such individuals have bridged the life of the movement from its early years as a so-called cult of outcasts to its present-day existence as an international movement of Pan-African liberation. Bongo WATTO, aka Ras Bonagees, is one such exemplary individual. In the language of the sociology of religion, he is someone who would be called an exemplary prophet. That is someone who, by virtue of their life works, and commitment to a faith exemplifies its principles almost in excess in order to establish a model for others to emulate. His life and works can be summarized in several general points. As a young RAS during the 1940s and 1950s, he set an example as an imple, resolute and uncompromising in his faith and filled with intense zeal of Rastafari. He sought out a number of the first evangelists of Rastafari to know and assess their wise mind, and through this, he went on to play a major role in developing the spiritual canon and practices of the Nyabingi order from the early 1950s onward. In his latter life, starting in the early 1970s, he would inspire a cohort of local and international seekers to embrace the faith, and in the decades that followed, was clearly the most widely traveled and influential of Nyabingi patriarchs until the time of his transition in October of 2000. Treading on the wine press in Yard. Bongo WATTO, also known as Henry F. Watson, was born July the 1st, 1925, in the parish of St. Mary, to parents who were Garveyites. At least one of his parents was of Maroon descent. During the period of the Italian occupation of Ethiopia, 1935 to 1941, he cited Rastafari in his early teens. In those years, as he once put it, he saw himself continuing the work of the Holy Prophet, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who had come to put the people in remembrance of their African legacy as a source of pride and upliftment for the race. In 1945, by the time he was 20, he began to visit Leonard Howell Rastafari Commune at Pinnacle in St. Catherine. Then legendary for the quality of its herbs, there are several days at a time. He participated in the spiritual services of Howell's Ethiopian Salvation Society, rituals conducted by chanting to the rhythms of kumina drums and smoking herbs. This was a practice that he continued episodically over the course of several years. He recalls a number of face-to-face reasonings with the Gong, Howell himself, and after his last visit in 1947, Bongo WATTO maintains that he returned to Kingston where he founded Nyabingi Order. While Bongo WATTO was a major figure in the formation of the divine order of the Nyabingi, his unvarnished claim as founder of the order warrants some nuance and interpretation. Contemporaries of the elder have argued that no one man founded the Nyabingi order. Rather, its creation was the collective inspiration of many individuals over a period of years. Bongo WATTO's claim rests in the fact that during the late 1940s, he acquired a copy of Sylvia Pankhurst's book, The Black International, which identified the King's Order as the Nyabingi. In 1946, he subsequently commissioned Buru drums from the drum maker named Daniel while living in Boys Town, Kingston. At the time, this was not a practice unique to him, as other Rastafari, including Pa Ashanti, did the same. Bongo WATTO christened his drum as the 7 Millenix drums. This would become one of the early sets of Nyabingi drums used in Rastafari congregations in West Kingston to hold services, both in yards and during street meetings. As noted, other Rastafari, including Pa Ashanti and Bongo Lloyd Moore in Bakawal and Count Ozzy in Renox Lodge, East Kingston, were also part of this Buru Nyabingi transition and made similar contributions. Suffice it to note that from 1947 to 1953, Bongo WATTO maintained a yard on Greenwich Park Road, which became a grounding site for Nyabingi protocols. In 1953, he moved to 9th Street in Trench, where he built a tabernacle in his yard, where the levity continued to be refined. Bongo WATTO's 9th Street yard would become the grounding site for a cohort of zealous brethren who identified themselves as the Youth Black Faith. The cohort included Brother Arthur, Brother Philip Panhandle, Rascarface, and most notably as a drummer, Bongo Claudy, aka Pa Ashanti. This group of brethren ultimately embraced the Dreadlocks Covenant that would become emblematic of the Nyabingi order, along with a number of notable others, including Ras Derminite and Bongo Bud. The group would become known as Bonergies, or Sons of Thunder, after the biblical passage in Mark 3:17. The name Bonergies, however, would come to rest almost exclusively on Bongo WATTO as signifier of his voicerous and stentorian style of charismatic preaching. The group would be among those militant younger Rastafari who sought to create a revival within the wider movement, distinguishing their practices from those of the first evangelists like Howell, Hibbert, and Hines, whose congregations were seen as compromised by various Christian or other negative incrustations. It is more than fair to say that Bongo WATTO's 9th Street encampment benefited from the fact that he was a good earner. Employed periodically as a steel worker during the construction of the University of the West Indies. Over the years, many brethren lived for periods of time in his 9th Street yard during the 1950s and 1960s. Jastone, Pa, and Ma Ashanti, and Bongo Shefan are among those known to have lived with Bongo WATTO for periods of time on 9th Street. It was during the 1950s that Bongo WATTO and his cohorts established the outlines of the Nyabingi canon. While some of these principles have been significantly amended over the years, the early Nyabingi creed included multiple convictions that continue to apply, in whole or in part today. These include recognition of the Bible and prophecy as I foundation, showing Emperor Haile Selassie is I creator and redeemer. Overstanding the drum is a weapon for I. We will chant Nyabingi until Babylon walls fall down. Embracing herbs, ganja is I sacrament given by the Almighty Creator. A determination to fight against 3 unclean spirits: the dragon, politics; the beast, commerce; and the false prophet, religion. A conviction that I culture is not for sale. Acknowledging that there is no resting place in Babylon. I are not here to be comfortable. Struggle and strife is part of our portion while in Babylon. Acknowledging that the pure idle man does not eat from a woman. These principles were coalescing during the 1950s, a decade during which Bongo WATTO was very active, but during which he suffered ongoing persecution for his defense of the sacrament. This included 2 prison sentences, during one of which he was poisoned. His faith was resolute and he persevered. In 1953, he organized a major street march in support of the Mau Mau uprising in Kenya. During that same year, he states that Prince Emmanuel I came to visit him in Trenchtown. Together, they later organized a series of 4 conventions in Akiwak, i.e. part of Bakawal, in 1954 through 1957. The 1955 gathering was held to celebrate the silver 25th anniversary of His Majesty and Her Majesty's coronation. All of these served as a prelude to the well-known All-Ireland Convention held there in March of 1958. Bongo WATTO recalls playing a major role in that event. One of the highlights of his life came in 1966 at the reception given at the Sheraton Hotel by Emperor Haile Selassie during his state visit to Jamaica. He noted that the emperor sent an emissary, a police inspector named Gordon Langdon, to ask him why he wore his head in dreadlocks. Although he knew His Majesty knew the answer to the question he had asked, he nevertheless quoted from number 6 to the emperor's representative. When informed of the answer that Bongo WATTO had given, His Majesty stated before the Jamaican elites gathered there, "Leave them, the Rastafari, alone, for they know what they are doing." Bongo WATTO asserts that there was a clear logic in the fact that the emperor instructed the police inspector to solicit his response, as that individual was well known to be hostile to the Rastafari, as were police in general. Hence, it represented a teachable moment. For his part, Bongo WATTO took the emperor's words as a mandate to spread the message and precepts of the Nyabingi order around the world. Yachting abroad. In 1973, after waves of political violence and turmoil had upset life across West Kingston, Bongo WATTO left Trenchtown and relocated to Goldsmith Villa, not far from the university. This put him in touch with a number of students from other parts of the Caribbean who were influenced by the spread of Black Power ideology that had accompanied Walter Rodney's tenure there in the late 1960s. Among such individuals were Ras Frank I, Mwali Mu of Antigua, and Ikel Tafari of Barbados. During 1973, Ikel lived with Bongo WATTO, while he was also engaged with Michael Manley's youth deployment initiatives. These pan-Caribbean connections would serve as conduits that initiated Bongo WATTO's international treading and positioned him as the most influential patriarchs in the spread of Nyabingi livity and practice. In April of 1975, he accompanied Ikel Tafari to Barbados on the first known international Nyabingi trot, thus planting the seeds for the order in the Eastern Caribbean. 8 years later, following the Second Rastafari International Theocracy Assembly in 1983, held on the Mona campus, Bongo WATTO led a Nyabingi delegation to the Eastern Caribbean, which included stops in Antigua, St. Vincent, Union Island, and Barbados. The mission was prevented from landing in Grenada due to the upheavals of the overthrow of the Bishop government. He was accompanied on that mission by Bongo Time, Pa Ashanti, Ras Ibo Ashanti. That mission had a major impact on the fledgling communities in the Eastern Caribbean, including Grenada, which would ultimately lead to the founding of the Caribbean Rastafari Organization. The following year, in 1984, Bongo WATTO traveled to Toronto, Canada, with Ras Ienton and Ras Ivil Wright as the central figure of the Voice of Thunder Trod. That month-long program, organized by Sister Carol Yarney and Sister Masani Montague at New York University, had as its objective to educate the Canadian public about the nature of Rastafari philosophy and practice. It came in the midst of Canadian concerns over Jamaican immigration in general and the Rastafari in particular, making increased levels of misunderstanding and conflict during the 1980s between the Canadian, US, and British states and members of the Rastafari movement. 2 years hence, in 1986, Bongo WATTO trod to London to participate in Rastafari Focus at the Commonwealth Institute. He followed up that mission with a trod to St. Lucia during the same year. During that trod, which included Ras Ivai Tafari, he clarified various Nyabingi protocols and consecrated the tabernacle at Vieux Forte St. Lucia. In 1988, Bongo WATTO was one of some 20 Rastafari who were scheduled to trod to New York and Washington, D.C. as part of the Rainbow Circle Throne Room mission, sponsored by the Smithsonian and organized in part by this writer. However, he withdrew at the last moment over disagreements with other elders on the trod. The 1990s would continue to be an active decade for the patriarch. In 1992, following the centenary trod to Ethiopia, Bongo WATTO made trod to the Eastern Caribbean, again to St. Lucia. In 1994, he trod to the ICOM RAS gathering in Miami on the Seminole Reservation, after which he traveled to Washington, D.C. and New York. In May of 1994, he traveled with Bongo Spear of Barbados to Lely Dorp, Suriname, to participate in a conference organized by the Caribbean Council of Churches, focused on the indigenous African aspects of spiritual practice found within the Caribbean practice of Christianity. In 1996, he again traveled with Bongo Spear, this time to Geneva, Switzerland, to defend the cause of repatriation and to secure observer status for the Rastafari movement within the United Nations Social and Economic Council. That mission did in fact secure observer status in the UN for the movement. In 1997, Bongo WATTO would travel to Guyana with a larger contingent that included Bingi Ari Irons, Bongo Joe Bernard, Sister Mitzi, Dr. Dean, Ras Ivai, Ras Ibo Ashanti, and Ira Tafari from Barbados. The first Nyabingi patriarch to trod to South Africa. In July of 1996, Bongo WATTO made his first trod to the African continent. traveling from London to Shashamane for the opening of the Nyabingi Tabernacle. This event marked the completion of the Centenary Tabernacle project, launched in 1992 on the Emperor's 100th Earthstrong. He then returned to London for 2 months, and in October of 1996 trod to South Africa, becoming the first Nyabingi patriarch to make such a trod. He traveled to Cape Town with a delegation of brethren and sistren from London and Birmingham, where they were met by Ibo Ashanti and brethren and sistren from Johannesburg and Palm Springs. In Cape Town, Bongo WATTO would spend a good deal of time with members of the Marcus Garvey camp in the township of Philippi on the Cape Flats. His presence there generated enormous interest, not only in South Africa proper, but in Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia. In Cape Town, he was hosted on Bush Radio, which helped to spread the news of his trod. Sister Carol Yoni, my late research partner, followed the impact of Bongo WATTO's sojourn in South Africa. When she traveled there during the late 1990s and early 2000s, she noted that wherever you go in the Rastafari communities of South Africa, Ras Boundergees is known as the first Nyabingi patriarch to make the mission there. They've even heard about him in the Nyabingi community in Swakopmund, Namibia. Even though Namibia has been kind of left out of the loop of Rastafari networking in Southern Africa. In circulating a memorial tribute to Ras Boundergees following his transition in October 2000, Sister Carol noted that Ras Boundergees was known across Southern Africa through word about his character and works, as well as through his image. In South Africa, in the South African community of Kinistana, a place where the Rastafari settlement is inspirationally located on a hilltop, she noted that near the entrance of the community, on the outside wall of the shop, was a striking painting of Ras Boundergees that could be seen from a distance, like a landmark. Ras Boundergees had never made it to Kinisna. But shortly after his transition, the community there was gathered to celebrate his life in their tabernacle. Sister Carol went on to say that Nyabingi houses across South Africa are marking this occasion Friday night, as they are in Zimbabwe and Botswana, at Marcus Garvey Camp in Cape Town, where Ras Boundergees spent much time. The Nyabingi started with the news of Ras Boundergees' transition. The life of Bongo WATTO, aka Ras Boundergees, is a testament to the fact that Rastafari is an African energy that manifests in the fullness of time. As Sister Carol has written, his works were to awaken and rise up a Nyabingi energy with his steady chants and beat on the bass drum of do good, do good, do good. He wielded the sword of Nyabingi fire to strike fear in the heart of those who would pervert the teachings of Rastafari. Rastafari is not for sale. For such cause, the tradition of the Venerable Patriarch Bongo WATTO will be remembered as having had an unequaled impact upon the internationalization of the divine order of the Nyabingi and its foundational precepts. June 23rd, 2021, compliments of IRAP, the International Rastafari Archives Project, Co-founders Carol D. Yarney and Jakes Homiak.
homiakj@si.edu. homiakj@si.edu.
Prayer of Bongo WATTO. Give thanks and praises unto the living I, Emperor Haile Selassie I. They are set thrones of judgment, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for the love of Jerusalem, and for them that prosper, that love thee. Love within thy walls and prosperity within thy palaces. Because of the house of the living I, Emperor Haile Selassie I, King Rastafari, I will continue to seek love forever and ever. Throughout the four wings of the heavens to the foundations of the earth, through I great, mighty, and praiseworthy Haile I Selassie I, King Rastafari. I and I was glad when I say unto I and I, come, let us go into the house of the living I. I and I feet must stand within thy gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem is built as a city which is compact together. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to come together in unity. It's like the precious ointment upon the head that ran upon Ionite beard to the skirts of Ionite garments, as the dew of Hermon that descended upon the mount of Zion. For there the Most High, eternal, immortal, Haile Selassie I had commanded the blessing to give life forever and ever. Let the words of I mouth and the meditations of I heart be freely accepted in thy sight, O thou Most High, Emperor Haile I strength and I Redeemer, who live and reign forever and ever. The eye is the lamp unto thy feet, and the light unto thy path. The path of the Almighty is mercy and truth, to such that keep his covenant and his testimony. Pardon our iniquity and block out our transgression, so that I can behold thy face in glory, now henceforth and forever. Haile Selassie, King Rastafari. I, Supreme Majesty, Haile Selassie, King Rastafari, eternally only King of Zion, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah, Haile Selassie, King Rastafari, live and reign forever and ever. Bless I, sanctify I, and cause thy holy countenance shine upon I, that I must be free from all I enemies, both now and forever. Selah. Yadop, born July 1st, 1925, Bongo WATTO is the self-proclaimed founder of the House of Nyabingi, starting from 1947. Bongo WATTO declared, I started this campaign when I was 13 years old. I went around the street preaching Rastafari. I heard the voice of the elder, Brother Howell. By that we used our scripture because His Majesty said Ethiopia has the oldest version of the Bible. I was taught from my youthful days to respect the value of the history of Ethiopia. So that is what we have to use as the strength of Black man history. I went around daily in the street preaching about His Majesty. This came with great tribulation. I was locked up in prison several times. I became a jailbird for Babylon. They throw Iman in jail anytime they want. Sometimes I spent 20, 30, or 49 days without charge. That was not all. I was beaten several times. I was charged and cast in prison. One time I was locked up for 18 months for rioting. I sure did not commit any riot. I was charged for the breach of prison law and cast in prison for 1 more year. I was also charged for her. Plenty of my years were spent in jail and prison for this cause, not for lying or trying to disturb the peace. I tried to disturb the spirit of men with righteousness. I glad for the inspiration that the Father gave unto I, so that I could share it with my brethren. Whosoever had an ear to hear, let him hear. The commandment is to preach the doctrine to all nations, and kings of the earth and all people in our days coming up. There were great tribulations. 1960, we took up a conversation with Arthur Lewis, the Chancellor of the University of the West Indies in Jamaica. He was a black man and heard our voice. The UWI Chancellor started an investigation into the relationship of Rastafari and the police to find out the root cause of the long war between Rasta and police. When His Majesty came in 1966, it was an example to all of them. His Majesty told them to leave them alone. I was in the presence of His Majesty, 1966, when he visited Jamaica. A superintendent police named Gordon Longden, who in 1954 stopped our march through Kingston City and locked us all in jail. We spent 32 days in jail. During the march, the superintendent asked for a permit to march. I handed him my Bible, which I had in my hand. On the day of the court, the judge wanted to know what permission we had to march. Police Langdon told the judge that I handed him a Bible as the permission. The judge took a note about that. 1966, when His Majesty came to visit Jamaica, the same policeman, London, was present. And when I stood before His Majesty, Gordon Longden said to me, His Majesty wants to know for me why I grow my locks so tall. I replied, what you say? I asked him the question twice. I gave the police superintendent the history of locks. First, I brought to his attention the priest order of Hebrews 7, the status order of the Nazarene, order of Numbers 6, and Revelation 14 and 7. He was quite amazed within himself. He turned to the king, who stood up and said to him, warriors, traitors, be still and know that I am he. Leave them alone, for they know what they are doing. They are right. On the journey, they tried to disturb Rastafari meditation with the use of herb. And I have been working over the many years. We tried to get the police underfoot so that when they see you on the street, they don't disturb you. Then only the police can attack you. We try to get the police underfoot so that when they see you on the street, they don't disturb you. Then only the police can attack you is for the use of the herb. The ganja otherwise, they don't disturb you. If the police visit the Nyabingi assembly and see herb on the table, they can't touch it, as there was a law not to disturb the Nyabingi tabernacle. If you are on the street and have herb, the police can lock you down for that. BONGO WATTO visited Pinnacle and had discussions with Leonard Howard. in 1945, 1946, and 1947. Pinnacle is where one had to go to get the best herbs. As the Howlite chant goes, to reap up the gungo. Watto affirmed that he would go take in Howell's services and stay for several days at a time. He had some face-to-face sessions with Howell. Watto founded the Nyabingi Order in 1947 in Trenchtown. The prelude to this, in Watto said he was working in Brickyard at Boys Town, keeping up meetings. Buster, he says, mashed up the place in 1946. At that time, Trenchtown as just a cane piece. During the dispersal of brethren, or was it just Burro or other people from Brickyard, West Kingston, Watto claims that he took the Roomba drums that were used when prisoners came back to the country from jail. This was a feature of Burro drumming at the time. Watto then started his place in Trenchtown in 1947. Started his tradition upon the street. At that time, we used to take one drum, the repeater, upon the street to keep meeting. I create this Nyabingi song from 1947. No one else. Trials and tribulations. 5 times in Jamaica, I did not know myself. I did not know if I was alive or dead. 5 times. I want you to understand that. It was a fire trod. Blood and fire, I come through ILAH. I was poisoned in prison and vomited up blood, not getting any medical care. Ultimately, the doctors had to pierce my side. I end up with Christ-like scars where I was pierced in order to drain blood from his lungs. I was also poisoned by my first wife. I received 18, 12, and 9 months sentences for herbs. In each of these prison terms, I had to sleep on the raw tara, cement of the cell. I could be out in a Babylon, going on with a whole heap of things. I could be a rich man, rotten rich materially. If I did take up this faith, like how I see some man take it up today, I would be looking on the riches, what I get. None of them boy out there could not sing as I. I could form a band long year ago, before all of them man there. All man like Bob Marley rise in my hand. If I want to form a band, I could form it, same like this Nyabingi band. It is I who form this Nyabingi band. I take up these instruments and teach a man to play them. Yeah, I could have a bigger world band with instruments and all them things there. Yeah, but I don't show I that. The I show I the Congo way to defeat the enemy. When you defeat the enemy, you can play all the music you talk about. No stone, no throw in a Babylon yet. It's girl that you this and girl you that. You have to sharpen the voice of angels for the omnipotent one. There is no other way. I now ask the brethren to strengthen one another and live good with one another. Sieve out things and set things straight. Set things straight and have obedience. Man doesn't have to have obedience to me, but to him who dwelleth in I. The same I dwelleth in everyone. We must respect the breath of life, that is the I Majesty, Haile Selassie, Jah, Rastafari. We don't want certain kind of things to happen to I and I. We don't want Satan to have dominion over I and I. Terrible things took place, and many Rastafari have lost their locks. The suffering of the Rastaman from 1930 straight up to the 1960s was heart-rendering. In the 1960s, when I made a certain report to the University of the West Indies, it led to a research by Chancellor Arthur Lewis, a black man. The research was to find the cause of the great controversy between Rasta and the police from 1930 to that time. That was the first attack that was from His Majesty against the police in Jamaica for their ill treatment against the Rastaman. You must not make anything disturb your mind, either by spirit or by words or by letters. Always have a steadfast mind towards trod. A day will come when the Son of Men will be seen with the son of perdition. A whole heap of man will fall away from the truths and rights of His Majesty. Most man will fall away into diverse denominations, political parties, societies, 12 tribes' business of keeping dances, and whorehouse. All these things have to move off the earth. It is one exaltation and one foundation of righteousness. If you take up corruption, we now sit with you. Those are they that pollute the I name, pollute the sanctuary, and gone as a whore with other nations, seeking the gain of the world, as when they gain enough money, they say, the Naya Bingi, nah, nothing. You nah go a Naya Bingi. No, make you go a 12 tribe, man. When you go 12 tribes, you buy a bottle of beer and see white girl. You understand, and you can buy a dragon stout and a rum. You can buy a plate of food, whole heap of stinking flesh. When you come to a Naya Bingi, you don't see nothing like that. You can't come there and see a white girl or look no white girl there. So you can't come a Naya Bingi and keep up adultery life. When you go at 12 tribe and federation, them the life that you go see. Even Bobo House have a contrary way. It's the same brethren or the elder for the Bobo House named Prince Edward. Rise in my hand. And when he came to Bakawal, he came to Iman to open up the house for him. I called my brethren and went to Bakawal and opened up the house in 1954 to 55. Prince Emmanuel, the elder for the Bobo House, raised in my house, which was the gathering house until 1958, when Prince Emmanuel called the convention. I can speak out on anything that happens in the faith from 1934. The I give I that gift, and raise I up early. I rise as a youth in the faith in perilous times. Satan, the son of perdition, will oppose all ones who is called by Haile Selassie name. From long time, Haile Selassie name was made mention to the people by the ancient prophets Enoch, ILAH, Elias. But it could not bring forth a manifestation before now. I was in the beginning, so I will be in the end. Haile Selassie, which means power of the Trinity. Rastafari means the Godhead. These things are not hidden from man. The traveling up of the exaltations of the throne that His Majesty exalt from his birth to his coronation, and even to this time, the devil will try to put himself as Haile Selassie. The Pope exalts himself, saying he is the Christ. The scripture, Mark 13, verse 6, said, "The false Christ who has risen among you will deceive you." The book of Revelation said, "He shall bring down the Almighty from heaven and exalt himself as the highest." All these things. When I quote the scripture and will not walk away from truths and rights, don't let the words of the Almighty I fall upon none and fall away from the truth. There is no other way that a man can be saved. There is no other name where a man can be saved than the name of Haile Selassie, the living I. We are coming from the grave, the same place where they bury me. The I said in Matthew 27, "You shall see I and I walking about the city, preaching and teaching in my name." Which name? Haile Selassie, Rastafari, the resurrection. Interpretation of the Bible. That is a big history. It's a great portion. We are they that came out of the tomb where we were buried, and the glad tidings and our historical foundations by the pirates of the earth was laid down to the deepest depths of the earth. But since our Messiah returned, it comes to the surface that every eye have to behold it. So our history pertaining to this resurrection, 1930, when His Majesty established His throne to the four wings of the earth. I and I, from 1930 up to this time, has seen a great manifestation of the works of the Father for bringing I and I together. In our early days of the 20th century coming up, we had a great prophet, Honorable Marcus Garvey, who enlightened our knowledge of Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad, and that was well appreciated among Black people. It was a message for us who are in the grave. It was the beginning of our first rising, as our mind was now repatriated to Africa. I believe in that time, 3/4 of the people had repatriated their minds. In 1930, His Majesty fulfilled His words, and we have seen the works coming to us plainly and very smoothly. Yet we suffered great tribulation. There were our brethren by the name of Ganganguru Maharaj, a Jamaican who had traveled abroad, and when he returned to Jamaica, he planted his seed of His Majesty Haile Selassie, King Rastafari, as we received the voice of the great man, Marcus Garvey, who had declared that a king shall rise and be crowned in Africa, and we must lift our heads for our repatriation draw near. We have seen that fulfillment. Ganganguru Maharaj, also known as Leonard Percival David Howell, a Jamaican, did a great job. It was a triumphant victory over the enemy. From that time on, it was a great tribulation, and thousands of our brethren have gone down the drain through Babylon brutality. In those days, Babylon was very terrible against the Rastas. Some suffered from malnutrition, and the force of Babylon destroyed plenty. Babylon was so terrible against the brethren, and some of them had to live in woods. Malnutrition and the force of Babylon took over plenty. I am glad to see today how the world is covered, that even the enemy himself wanted to be a friend, but through the power of His Majesty, we give thanks. Prince Emmanuel. Edward Charles Emmanuel visited Bongo WATTO in 1953 at a time when Trenchtown was still a cane piece. Prince Emmanuel came to him for grounding. At that time, Prince was riding a bicycle and was a small-time vendor on Foreshore Road. WATTO said prior to the 1958, he, WATTO, organized 4 conventions in Aki Walk, Still Bush with Dildo Maka, 1954, 55, 56, 1957. Soon after that, there was the 58 convention, in which he played a central role. Can a person be a Rasta without dreadlocks? That is a very hard. You cannot be saved without dread, and the dread alone can't save you. Many will have dread, but not the liberty. Dread carries divine liberty. It is not like a man puts on your dread because you feel to put it on. You must know the cause and purpose. When you put on your dread, you must know that you have a responsibility to edify one another. You are one who should live a clean life among the people. You should be able to show the people wrong from right. So you must always convert your heart or your locks according to Psalm 109, which said, "By your precepts you will be wiser than your teacher." I always encourage ones to come in the fullness and be of meek ability and with a charitable heart, a loving spirit, since his locks mean love. Locks mean graduation, to rise up as in ancient times as saints of the people and of the Most High. Without your locks, you cannot stand as a saint of the Most High, because in Revelations chapters 2 and 3, he places his name in your forehead. Revelations 14, I saw 140 and 4,000 having their father's name on their forehead. These are they who come out of great tribulation. These are they who wash their white robes and become clean. These are they who were defiled by women. These are they who follow the Lamb wherever he goeth. Will redeem from among men. Without locks, no one can call you Rasta. When I trod up in the early days, the man who was called Brother Man did not grow locks. In that time, he doesn't stand as a saint or a prophet, for both the apostle and the prophet and the saint are one who walks within the order of righteousness and keeps their garments clean and spotless. Revelation 9. Those who have stepped out in the fields today use locks as a hairstyle. It is not a hairstyle, but a reality to raise ourselves from the hands of the enemy. The eye said, "For his glory he shall cover the earth as waters cover the sea." I give thanks from 1930, coming up in those early times as a youthful one. I take up my locks. I could not point out 5 or 6 brethren having locks those days. I can mention 3 brethren especially who were carrying their locks, but how they handled themselves was in question, for they did not show up themselves as a teacher of the people. They just have on the locks, and people would scorn them, like rubbish or a piece of old cloth. When people looked at them, they walked on the other side in those days. When I started my campaign, we called ourselves the Youth Black Faith. It was a little army of us 4 or 5 of us coming up the ages. We declared the Nyabingi order. However, the problem of division touch I. By observing those brethren, I said to my brethren, listen to the words of the scripture. Luke 21. Read, for my name's sake, they shall kill some of you. They shall cast you in prison. They shall do you all manner of evil falsely for my name's sake. They shall call you all manner of evil. They shall call you criminal for my name's sake. They shall treat you as a wrongdoer. When I search these matters and go through my scripture, I found out that the saints of the Most High are exiled people. I see the value of that. When I look on Ethiopia history, I found out that every patriarch that came through the ages walked in that manner. With that knowledge, I started to put on my dread at the age of 16 or 17. For that cause, it was great tribulations. So your locks is an example. Honorable Marcus Garvey said, Garvey is gone, but Marcus is here. We are the mark man. You can see from afar with the mark of the Almighty. The scripture said, as you see them, you will say, see one of them there. According to the scripture, Psalm 22, they are those that put their trust in the Almighty. Say the Almighty will save them, but the enemy says, let him save you since you put your trust in the Most High. As the enemy is here to destroy you. With the confidential security of the Almighty, we just walk in the streets to spread the truth. Today I give thanks that the locks cover the earth and the children of the enemy are now wearing locks. The divinity of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. The divinity of His Majesty is very expensive. When one walk within such, they walk in the street of gold, or otherwise fine gold. We were taught to know the steps of His divinity. He that speaketh truth show forth righteousness, and a false tongue is a deceit. A lying tongue is just for a moment. It's an abomination to the Most High. But they who deal truly are in the light. Truth is the divinity of His Majesty, and when you are speaking the truth today, you are in trouble with your people who will try to make fun of you. People prefer when you tell lies or play a trick on them. They love you in that manner. Whenever time you start to speak the truth, you are in trouble. Even your very mother and father forsake you. I have seen when I start to hold certain conversations, friend and family depart. Friend and family began to depart for the truth's sake. They love you in that manner. Whenever time you start to speak the truth, you are in trouble. Even your very father and mother forsake you. I have seen when I start to hold certain conversations, friend and family began to depart for the truth's sake. To release Ethiopia to the nation and the divinity of His Majesty is not easy work. However, we become Wisemind. We learn to be tender and meek among our people and to practice the ways of charity. The divinity of His Majesty is the path finding out its deeper depth, a higher heights, and wider breadth. It's not something that you can jump on so easily. You have to observe the life you live. That is truth and rights. And when you start to manifest what is truth to the nation and be truthful to yourself, you gradually grow to be meek and humble and more wise mind and use your discretion in the right and the proper way. One must be the servant of the Most High and walk in His footsteps. You cannot appear to the people as a hooligan or tyrant or something, and you have to appear to the people as wise mind and know that the meek shall inherit the earth. Touching upon the divinity of His Majesty, it's a selective portion wherein from an ancient order of King Melchizedek, he came along in the name of Jesus the Christ. He made a sacrifice of himself unto the world, and he laid down his life for his people to redeem his people from sin and transgression. He arose in this time as ILAH Selassie. It is said in the scripture of Revelation 3, he shall come with a new name. I shall have his name in our forehead. Revelations 14. I look upon Mount Zion and I see 144,000 having their father's name in their foreheads. These are they who came out of great tribulation. These are they who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These are they who are not besieged by women. These are they that dwelled for ever and ever with the Most High. The divinity of His Majesty is a capability that we have to walk within to inherit that river of water of life itinerally. I and I have seen that the first steps of our coming up, there will be many tribulations for my name's sake. You shall be hated by all nations for my name's sake. That is why the Rastafari throughout the land is an offense to people and government. In some countries, it takes governments a long time to come to the knowledge of the Rasta people. They call us all manner of evil. The scripture of Luke 21 said that they shall do you all manner of evil, send you to prison, and put you to death for my name's sake. We have seen all of these things happen, and we now see the full divinity of His Majesty, the King of Kings, the conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, and elect of himself, ILAH Selassie. The coronation of Emperor Haile Selassie. The coronation of His Majesty, 1930, was established with government and the universal world. 72 nations bow in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, which is the Judah, which is called the ancient land of the living. We have seen the establishment which the second coming to the second advent of the Most High, the King of Glory, ILAH Selassie. So that establishment in 1930 is the resurrection as seen in the book of Revelations chapter 2. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Irites have said unto the churches and to the faithful and true. Blessed are those who took part in the first resurrection of the departure of Jesus, the King, the Christ, the King of the Jews, who said he would return as King of Kings. So we have seen, so we have heard. I and I still act on the full foundation of His Majesty, holding it firm to establish His dominion from sea to sea. ILAH Selassie. The role of woman. We have seen our sistren today having the same pollution. Many of them don't understand. The brethren don't set that light in the right manner. And I have seen great struggles and difficult things among us. In my travel to different lands, I have found the difference between brethren and sistren. When you are in the world, you are just in it. However, the Almighty has said to be in the world but not of the world. From when you open your eyes to this liberty, you must be a different person. It is stated in the law that a woman should not marry more than one husband if you want to be an ancient woman. If that husband dies and you are free from the law of marriage, then you can choose another husband. However, if he is still alive, you cannot choose another husband. Our colonial life teaches us about marriage. Many times a woman will spend all their days out in the world and they will reach 30 or 40 years old. They join a church and speak about marriage. Probably that same woman may have 3 or 4 men in her life already, or even a prostitute, and yet she wants to join the church and seek marriage. Our ancient order is when a man and a woman seeking a wife or husband, the man should take a young virgin and call her his wife. In an ancient times, a man did not get the opportunity to see a young daughter without a parent's approval. And if he even touches her, it was a big violation and could result in death punishment by law. There should be no whore or prostitute in the land. And when you defile the woman and depart from her, what do you expect her to do? And when she sights her right husband, he will get a polluted person who defiled the sister to have to consider all these situations that will arise in her relationship. Sometimes one brethren will have 3 or more children with one daughter. Then he leaves her and another man takes her up. The new man gives her one child and now moves on to another. All those things are bad type of living. The scriptures of Timothy 3, chapter 3 and 6 speak to this matter. The law and commandments of the Almighty must be lived today. When I look within myself, I am grieved within to know that one who has long locks is doing these things. As such, the judgment is on both sides. The brethren is the head, and he should correct things when they go bad. But instead of doing good, the lust of the flesh is the temptation. It's not to just check a beautiful daughter. You should always inquire about her liberty. You should not defile her, and she may not understand the tradition of liberty. She takes it for love, so we have to remind ourselves. Ancient Father Abraham, who married one wife, Sarah, he never takes her to Babylon or put a ring on her finger. Levitical law of Moses said, when you lay with a woman, she is your wife. Remember the Sumerian woman. When Christ met the woman by the side of the well, she said she doesn't have any dealing with Jews. The Christ said if she knows who is now talking to her, she would give him water to drink. She replied that the well is deep and she has nothing to draw the water. The Christ told her to drink of his water and she will never thirst again. She did not understand the meaning and was looking sexually. Then the Christ asked her about the many husbands she has. She was shy in her answer. She was reminded that there were 5 husbands already, and the present one is not her own. There was a woman who was taken by Christ, accused of adultery. Now Christ said, anyone among you without sin, cast the first stone. They all were found guilty and walk away from the scene. Christ said to the woman, "Where are your accusers?" She replied, "They are gone." The Christ replied, "I don't condemn you. Go thy way and sin no more." We have to straighten up ourselves, for the Father doesn't condemn anyone. There must be a principle among the daughter. They have to realize that living with this and that man is wrong. And when they realize that truth, they must accept it and not return to that way of living. Ancient Jacob, while employed to his uncle Laban during those years, working, he married Laban 2 daughters, and when he was leaving Laban's house, each of his wives had their own maids. And as such, he departed with 4 women, whose children became the 12 tribes of Israel, because the 4th woman were not touched by a next man, only Jacob alone. Samuel's father had 2 wives, one by the name of Hannah and the other Peninnah, who had children while Hannah had no children. As such, Hannah was provoked by Peninnah because she was barren. She prayed in the presence of Eli, the priest of the temple, to be blessed with a child, who was named Samuel. Therefore, having more than one wife is not a carnal living, and the wives must live good together. However, any man who violates that relationship will suffer death. You will be breaking the covenant of the ancient order. It's not wrong to have the women, but is to keep them. And if you know you cannot support them, don't touch them and leave them alone. It's best to enter the kingdom without a wife rather than have a wife and enter into hellfire. The Nyabingi is a very particular tradition. Some will take onto the faith, while others will be afraid of it. The levity of the clean and perfect man is a peculiar one. Haile Selassie. The vows of the Nyabingi. In 1928, His Majesty crowned King of Kings. The word Naya is not a strange word. His Majesty speak it in Hebrew words. And when he was in the temple of Jesus the Christ at the first advent, he said, "Keep my commandments and live. And he that destroys my commandments and walketh not in my laws is none of I. He that keepeth my commandments shall live. He that breaketh my Sabbath shall surely die." His Majesty remains today in the second advent and announced the order of the Nyabingi, which is the same ancient order of King Melchizedek, a righteous order. Righteousness exalts a nation, and sin is a reproach. The word Nyabingi is a very peculiar word. Many brethren who come to the faith prefer to use the word federation instead of Nyabingi. His Majesty was from the foundation of the world, according to Proverbs chapter 8, in which the order of Melchizedek was given, which is the order of righteousness, which you must observe and walk in a perfect way. Know that he that walk in a perfect way shall serve I. He that sow deceit shall not reside in my house. He that tell lies shall not dwell in my house. Speak truth and speak it ever, cause it what it will, and whosoever do the wrong, continue to do the wrong thing still. If you do the wrong, you must perish. I appreciate everyone who comes to the knowledge of the faith. The order of the Nyabingi mean that everyone must come. Leave all that you have and come. This is not a political way of life. You come to cleanse the earth through the power of the Almighty Word, so that everyone can live in a righteous way. The only way you can get redemption and return to Ethiopia, for no man can return to Ethiopia in the second advent, when the Almighty shall set forth his judgment to terrorize the nation. No one cannot enter Ethiopia unless on a righteous way. In this revival in the kingdom of His Majesty, no one cannot enter in this kingdom unless you walk into a righteous way of truth. We have to forewarn our brethren and family to this tradition. There is a peculiar way about it. It is not because you are in the world. I and I in the world, but not of the world. I have said, I sent you in the world, but the world has hated you for my name's sake. I have sent you among the nations to learn of their ways, and not for you to do after them. Men have formed societies and institutions and have not walked in the fullness of truth. Coming on the journey, Jesus, our Savior, discussed matters among the scribes and Pharisees. It was confusion among them. As such, he had to sit up with them and show them great powers. When you are dealing with the precepts of the Nyabingi, one has to be careful of what they are really doing in the world today. The Nyabingi preceptical administration enables I and I to act differently from ones in the world. A preacher or pastor will say, you must be free from sin to enter into heaven. You have to do righteousness. A preacher nor a parson never tell you what sin is. They only tell you that you should not sin. The precepts of the Nyabingi order are telling people what is sin. There are the 10 commandments that everyone learns from youthful days, but we have a million more than the 10 commandments. Every word in this prophecy is a commandment. The Nyabingi order cannot be amalgamated. You cannot mix the order with the political system, which is polluting the word or sanctuary of His Majesty. We have seen many lives of today are reaching out to the political system of Babylon and have tried to lead people in the wrong way. Bob Marley took up the faith in the form of reggae, and when you observe the world of reggae, it's in a denial. Bob went out from Jamaica and went all over the world administrating reggae, and for that cause you will find that this reggae spirit attracts many people to the faith of Rastafari, who I knew. However, what have the reggae done? It shows you to put on locks and shake it, and people love that. However, reggae caused a great amalgamation seduction. It don't really teach you the reality of His Majesty. You is a Rasta man and have on your locks, yet you in the dance hall and in the rum bar. You have a white girl with you. This is not of the faith. That is far out of the faith complete. That is called amalgamation, whoredom and prostitution. You must not take another wife or husband from another nation. We have seen these things and don't agree with it, especially among the 12 tribes and the reggae brethren, which is a pollution of the faith. That is an outside business. You are showing the people the light of the dread. What about the cleanliness of life that you are supposed to live? When one becomes a saint of the Most High, you must be free from pollution, fornication, and adultery. If I know that this brethren is your husband, yet I come and try force myself just to get you due to lust of the flesh, it is a bad life. We have seen that many times it's bad life of living. We must not cover our brother's wife nakedness. We must not cover our father wife nakedness. We must not lay with our brother wife. We must not lay with our father wife. When I look up into these things, I see amalgamations and mixed down business. The Nyabingi order is to purify these things and not to bring about a mixed multitude, and that is what the enemy wants to do to us. By raping Ethiopia, raping our daughters, and bring a crossbreed people, and these are the giants that rise upon I and I, who are more cruel and wicked than the white man himself. When they get into the position, they rule with an iron hand because they don't have any nationality. They are neither east, west, north, or south. They have nowhere to go. In the resurrection, they cannot be called a saint of the Most High, who are royal people. A pair of black people and a pair of white people are royal people. When you are in the middle, not black or white, you will be spewed out of the land. You have no use in the kingdom. You cannot administer the kingdom. You can't administer righteousness. What are you going to tell the people? This is the royal foundation of the foundation of Emperor and the Solomonic order of King David and King Solomon. This must be clean and perfect. I should show the world that the Nyabingi order is about teaching and casting out evil forces as in ancient times. Within the order of the divinity of His Majesty, there should be purification. Ones must be free from indecent living and all these things. Otherwise, you will still carry your locks, and when the time comes, you cannot enter as you depart from the covenant and pollute the name of the Almighty on the journey. Each one will be paid according to their works. We must cleanse our people from secret faults and keep ourselves from presumptuous sins. So in the days of the great transgression, we may have the opportunity to stand before the Most High and be blameless and spotless. These are the foundations that we have to trod upon. It is the order of the Nyabingi. You must not tell lies or steal from your brother or sister, and you must not take the faith and make a commercial living. Anyone who is doing these things is very terrible. Instead of people being lifted, the word of the Almighty has become like merchandise. 12 tribes and federation, I see them doing these things, stretching their hands to Baal for a bag and running down the bag. You cannot use the faith for gain. You should rise your people by inspiration that was given to you by the Father to edify your people, to show them wrong from right. But today I see bands of music and big dance, and you only pocket the money. They still live in dormancy without the guidelines. The bar is still open. The whorehouse still open. You go dancing, you dance with one and eat and drinking with anyone. It is the same unclean living, the same Babylonian life. But the saints of the Most High separated people. Moses was instructed to separate his people from among them, and we are people who don't like to be mixed up in other people's affairs. We as a people don't take part in an unclean living. Many have concluded the order of the Nyabingi is too strict and refuse to comply, yet they have on the locks. These are the things that stand before us today. The man within the Nyabingi faith will face a great tribulation among the brethren. The one who has on locks, the people who don't have locks, will listen to you. However, the locksman will be contrary and contradict your biblical presentations because he is already polluted. So when the truth reaches him, there is a struggle in his heart. I and I must now walk within the divinity of His Majesty to redeem the people, but first we must redeem ourselves. We are on this journey working, yet some have locks down to the hem of their garments and have not started the work. And we now find the same colonial system on the street with rum drinking and sometimes with a beer or Guinness bottle in his hand, and also with his cigarette smoking. This is not the order of righteousness. If you are a saint, you must walk in the land and among the people as a saint of the Most High. If you are a prophet, you have to show the people that you are and the cleanliness of life. International travels. Bongo WATTO is the single elder who had the most significant impact upon the spread of Rastafari, Nyabingi, into the Eastern Caribbean. From the early 1970s, he had younger intellectuals around him like Ikel Tafari. Bongo WATTO in South Africa. In April 1975, he trod to Barbados and spread Rastafari into the smaller islands. Another trod in 1983 to the Eastern Caribbean, and in 1984 he traveled to Canada for the Sons of Thunder tradition. In 1986, it was Rastafari focus in London. In 1992, he traveled to Ethiopia for the centenary. Again, in 1997, WATTO was in Shashamane as well as South Africa, particularly Cape Town. Irids of Bongo WATTO. I and I are living in the end of time. Wise men know the time, but no man knows the hour. How one knows the Antichrist, in deal with spirit, echoes the Emmanuelite philosophy, which states that man who say God come in the flesh is the Christ, but man who say God is spirit is the Antichrist. Prophecy. The Bible is I and I foundation. The drum is a weapon for I and I. There is no resting place in Babylon. I and I are not here to become comfortable. Struggle and strive is part of our portion while we sojourn in Babylon. The pure ital man don't eat from woman. WATTO says he don't eat from the hand of a woman for over a year. On charity, you don't ask a man if him needs something. When you see him need, you're supposed to give it. When the righteous man you see a next man need, you give him. You don't wait to be asked. Ancient Bongo WATTO's prayer as the sealing word sound to the 1980s Golden Jubilee Nyabingi at Angel Heights, St. Catherine. May it please thee, O Jah, Rastafari, to prosper our steps and doings. Grant that our wishes and desires be sanctified by thee, for the sake of our great, mighty, and thunderable King, Jah Rastafari. Hear us, O Jah, of righteousness. Thou art the Lord upon whom I am calling in I and I distress. Have mercy upon us and hear our prayer. O yeah, sons of Babylonian men. How long will ye turn our glory into shame? How long will ye hold on to vanity and seek after these things? Rule I, Jehovah Rastafari, into the path that is sanctify himself. We shall stand in the way and sin not. We shall commune upon your head with our whole heart in these things. Offer the sacrifice of righteousness and put your hopes in the Most High, Jah, Rastafari. For they shall declare those who do good. Jah, lift up the light of thy countenance upon I and I. Put gladness in our hearts that we can share corn and wine in peace as thou, Jehovah Rastafari, walk in both peace and safekeeping. Thou, the eternal power of the Almighty, most wise Jah, Rastafari, Almighty, most wise Jah, Rastafari. Guide and protect us, O Jah, Rastafari, thou Savior of our Father and Irater of the universe. Hear us this morning as I and I stand before thy presence, giving thanks and praises unto thee, eternal one, Jah, Rastafari, that thou lead us in the path of righteousness continually, in our goings and our comings, from this time, upwards and forever. Let peace be upon Israel, and to them that walk uprightly in thy holy name, Jah, Rastafari. Grant thy wishes and desire unto our heart, that I and I should accomplish whatsoever thou giveth us to do, O Jah, Rastafari. As Jesse has lifted up his eyes unto heaven and said, Father, see how I come, glorify thy Son, that thy Son must be glorified in thee. Bless and sanctify from this time as in that time, upward and forever. Take hold of shield and buckler, stand up for our health, for thou art most high, visible, and eternal, Father, Jah, Rastafari. Father, thou hast seen us on a portion of our journey, accomplishing the work of the 50th anniversary of the administration of the holy cities, of thy holy cities. The word has been given out from such time, accomplishing this work like unto these days. Jah Rastafari, lead us continually in righteousness, and I shall exalt thy name. Jah Rastafari. As the words have been spoken from the mouth of the holy prophet, and in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, O Jah Rastafari, the saints of the Most High shall rejoice in thy name, giving praises. Hail, Jah, Jah, yes, Jehovah. At this time we stand to behold and to receive the thanksgiving and the blessing and the merciful kindness of the Almighty that thou hast foretold us. In the mighty kingdom of Zion, hear us, O Jah, Rastafari. Just send forth thy deliverance now, Rasta Yo. Lead us out of the hands of the enemy now, as thou hast speak thy words from the holy mouth of the prophet. Israel, behold, thy restoration has come in this 50th anniversary of the King Almighty, most wise, Jah Rastafari. Give us the strong arm and a powerful hand. O thou most mightily one of iration, our Father, our Guider, our Rock, and our salvation, as we are now about to leave this Nyabingi ground, we look for thy to prepare us to give thanks for another home, Jehovah Rastafari. Thou art a shield and a guide, a buckler unto I. Thou art thy power, from this time henceforth forever. Jesse, the Holy One of Iration, the King of Kings, and Jehovah Almighty Jah Rastafari. Bless I and I, sanctify I and I, cause thy holy divine countenance to shine upon I and I, that I and I shall be free from the hands of our enemies, both now and forever. Jah Rastafari, Jah Rastafari, Jah Rastafari, Iman Sila. Psalm 87. His foundation is in the holy mountains. The Lord loves the gates of Zion more than all the dwellings of Jacob. Glorious things are spoken of you, O city of God, Selah. I will make mention of Rahab and Babylon to them that know me. Behold, Philistia and Tyre, with Ethiopia, this man was born there. And of Zion it shall be said, this and that man was born in her, and the highest himself shall establish her. The Lord shall count when he writes up the people that this man was born there. As well the singers as the players on instruments shall be there. All my springs are in thee. The chant. I leave my home and family and travel with the cause of love. Leave my home and family and travel with the cause of love. Travel, 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 travel in the cause of love.
Wisemindpublications.com